So, a relatively hot topic of discussion regarding The Witcher and its characters is Avallac'h and the many aspects of his person. Most people seem to think he's the bad guy because he's an NL and because Geralt said so, also because he's only using Ciri for his purposes and he has a very selfish mindset. Not to mention everything that happened in Tin Alia with Ciri. But is that really true? Well, that's what we're here to find out, I suppose. But first, let me tell you of our first meeting with Avallac'h and why Geralt does not see Avallac'h as a friend. When we meet Avallac'h for the first time, it's actually through Geralt, not Ciri. He introduces himself to Geralt by his full name, Crevan Espain ap Kauman Macha, or his alias, Avallac'h. And Avallac'h is in the process of painting a prehistoric scene on a rock wall when Geralt finds him. The scene depicted a purple buffalo with tiger stripes being chased by sketched figures of people with spears and bows. When Geralt asked him what it was supposed to be, Avallac'h explained to him that he was painting this prehistoric picture in an effort to trick future human historians to think that this was an authentic cave painting of primitive people hunting the long-extinct purple buffalo. So Geralt suggested he also paint the hunters with enormous erect dongs, and Avallac'h thought that was a wonderful idea because, in his words, it forged the theory that the human race suffers from physical degeneration. Thanks for that, Geralt. As they talked, Avallac'h guessed why Geralt was there. He was there because he was looking for Ciri. And after telling Geralt he was an Ensevern, a knowing one, Geralt asked him if he would be willing to share his knowledge, to which Avallac'h replied with the following drivel. "Share," he at last drawled, "with you, my dear Witcher. Something like that is a great privilege, and privileges are only shared with equals. And why would I, an elf, a knowing one, a member of the elite, why would I share anything with a descendant of a being who barely a few million years ago evolved from a monkey, rat, jackal, or other mammal? A being who needed around 2 million years to discover that using their 2 hairy hands, they can make a primitive tool out of a bone, and after which he got that cone and put it in his anus, groaning with happiness." The elf was silent. He turned and stared at his painting. "Why?" he said mockingly. "Do you dare hope that I will share with you any knowledge, human? Tell me." So, needless to say, that wasn't a very pleasant conversation. Regardless, Geralt throws the logic down and tells him that eventually, whether the knowing one like it or not, men would simply take all the knowledge they need, so he might as well share it now. Clearly stunned by Geralt's blinding logic, with a spell, Avallac'h opens the rock wall on which he was painting and revealed an elven cemetery behind it. It was exceptionally beautiful, as elven things usually are, and Avallac'h explains that the painting he was creating was there to prevent humans from cutting through the rock wall and finding this cemetery, to prevent devastation and theft. This cemetery was called Tirnaba Arain. Eventually, after Ithlin's prophecy was complete, the elves would return here and begin anew. The elves that follow the swallow will survive. Ciri is a swallow, of course. And as they spoke of the elder blood, Avallac'h turned towards a beautiful statue that depicted Lara eb Shiadal. When Avallac'h spoke of Lara, Geralt noticed that his usually indifferent voice changed for a moment. He explained why Lara was special, the elder blood, how she ran off with Kergenan of Lod over him, and so on and so forth, and I'm sure he's not at all bitter over that at all. The elder blood gene was engineered by the elves over the course of hundreds of years, and as far as Avallac'h and the NL were concerned, the humans had now stolen that gene. When Avallac'h then spoke of Lara's death, Geralt again noticed a change in his voice. But our Witcher man was getting quite impatient now, and his goal was to find Ciri, and Avallac'h was going on and on about a prophecy he already knew about, and so he informed Avallac'h of his hurry. Avallac'h, however, informs him that Geralt's whole venture of saving Ciri was meaningless, that it was too late. She could fend for herself just fine anyway, and that someone else would help her now. I'm sure he doesn't mean himself, or does he? And why the hurry? Oh, sorry. You, it seems, have not understood anything I said, so I will tell you directly. Your great venture of rescue is meaningless. It is useless. First, it is too late. The principal evil has already taken place. You are no longer able to rescue the girl before he gets her. Second, Now she has entered the true path. The swallow can fend for herself brilliantly. She has the power within herself to make everything fear her. So, your help is unnecessary. And third, I'm listening, Avallac'h. I've been listening the entire time. Third, someone else will help her now. I hope you are not so arrogant to think that this girl is only associated with your destiny. Is that all? Yes. Goodbye, then. Geralt then prepares to leave, but Avallac'h stops him and asks him if he would still try to rescue her now that he knew his quest was impossible. And Geralt says he would still try, because he did not believe in Avallac'h and his set future, nor did he believe in Ithlin. Avallac'h then, without Geralt's knowledge of course, accurately predicts what would happen should he go to find Ciri. Geralt does not believe him, and instead he believes that while Avallac'h is entirely capable of helping him, he simply chooses not to. And that is the main reason I believe Geralt does not like Avallac'h, coupled of course with what Ciri might have told him as well. And no doubt he was right. Avallac'h might have been perfectly capable of leading Geralt straight to Ciri that day. After all, he predicted with perfect accuracy that Dandelion would stay in Toussaint. He predicted the deaths of Regis, Milva, Angoulême, and Cahir. He predicted that Ciri would leave for Galahad's world not long after Geralt found her again, where, as far as the book is concerned, she stayed forever. So, if he knew all of that, why would he not know where to find Ciri? No doubt Geralt had already thought of this too, and it's not unlikely he holds a grudge against Avallac'h for not giving him more help than he did. Now, from Avallac'h's point of view, it was entirely natural not to put him on Ciri's path. He is a knowing one, an elven sage. He firmly believes that changing destiny simply isn't possible, so if fate wanted Geralt to save Ciri, then so it would be. There would be nothing he could do about it, or vice versa. Fate didn't need Avallac'h to tell Geralt anything, like he said. The mill of predestination works, grinding the grain of fate. You cannot change what is to happen. Having said that, when Geralt does ask him for help, Avallac'h does help in his own way. He gives Geralt the means, a very fast-moving monster, to get to his friends in time to save them, at least for now. Not really something a bad guy would do, one might think. Now, on to when Ciri meets Avallac'h. So seeing as he has already foreseen everything, he also foresaw Ciri finding the Tower of the Swallow, and so he awaits her there, but when Ciri arrives, she is no longer allowed to leave, although she is allowed to do basically whatever she likes inside the tower, and later in Tir na Lia. She calls Avallac'h out on keeping her prisoner, although she is impressed with him being an Ensevern, and she accuses the elf of laughing at her behind her back and despising her. But he's surprised at this. Seemingly genuine, though he might be feigning that, of course. At the same time, Ciri feels trapped because no matter where she goes, she always returns to the tower and the lake she started at, making it feel even more like a prison. She's also frustrated because she'd already been there for 8 days and nothing had happened. Our Lady of Time and Space was very bored. Avallac'h tries to console her in his own way by saying, "Well, what's 8 days, right?" But that only angers Ciri. However, for an elf, 8 days really is nothing. Neither is 8 weeks or 8 months, even 8 years. Avallac'h is having a hard time understanding why being stuck in one place for 8 days is such a big deal for Ciri, a human with a lot less time than an elf. He tells Ciri she can leave after a time, but Ciri wants to leave now. She came there by choice, and she should be able to leave by her choice as well. Little did she know Avallac'h was a bit of a tosser. This is where Avallac'h clings to his belief in fate again. He argues that she didn't come there by choice, it was fate. The elves only helped it along a little. He insists that her being here confirms that she is of the Elder Blood, Lara Doran Epshiadal's daughter, and her place should be here, with the NL, not with the humans of her world. Avallac'h truly seems to believe this. Elves in general believe themselves to be superior to humans, and being a knowing one just amplifies that by several degrees. To Avallac'h, as hard as it was to believe 8 days is a long time, it was equally difficult to believe that Ciri would choose to be a part of the human world over the grand world of the NL. Anyway, it gets worse, of course. Ciri was only there because Avallac'h and the rest of the NL wanted Ciri to bump uglies with their old elven king, so they could have a beautiful bouncing baby with a lot of elder blood. Yes, they just wanted their blood back. As soon as Ciri could get that over with, she would be allowed to leave, but not before that, or else. The Elder King even threatens her at some point when he's very high on drugs and very upset he can't get it on with Ciri, that if all this doesn't work, she'll end up in Avallac'h's laboratory. And you might remember that Vilgefortz had a laboratory too. And if I'm not entirely wrong, I very much doubt that Avallac'h's lab was much different from that particular kind. It's not pretty. If I say what it means out loud, I'll immediately get demonetized, but you know what I mean. So, Ciri runs away with the aid of the unicorns, eventually at least, and the story continues and so on and so forth. And we never hear from Avallac'h again until The Witcher 3, where he's, well, equally cunty, really. Now, what can we gather from all this? A few things, actually. First, Avallac'h thinks that what he knows is the truth and nothing but the truth. However, if we assume that his intentions are evil, then what he deems the true future doesn't come to pass, because I doubt his ideal future was Ciri runs off to the land of Camelot. So yes, his future visions, while seemingly quite accurate in the short term, if he's evil, are not 100% reliable. Although we'll get back to this whole future-telling thing by the end, don't worry. The second thing is, he's basically on par with Vilgefortz in terms of how far he'd go to get what he feels is rightfully his, Ciri's blood. At least when we go by the king's words. The problem with that is, and you already know where I'm going with this, if you watched my series on the elves in the Witcher world, the blood is not really his, is it? In my elf series, I posed a theory on how the NL ever got to traveling between worlds so easily, while the rest of existence seemed pretty stuck on their own little piece of land. The answer I came up with was unicorns. Iorveth notes that the Elder King is old, but the fox and the sparrowhawk cannot seize power of Ardgaith, the gateway to the worlds. They captured it once, they lost it once. Now they can do nothing more than wander, roam among the worlds, taking tiny steps alone, like specters, powerless. And later still, he tells Ciri that the only reason they could use the gate before was because they deceived the unicorns. So it only stands to reason that, after the unicorns abandoned them, the NL sought a way to harness their time and world-traveling powers for themselves. And the most likely way to do that would be to catch a unicorn and somehow infuse a new bloodline with that power. Do not ask me what goes on in Avallac'h's laboratory. I could write an essay about it, but I'll save that. So no, the blood was never theirs. The power was never theirs. They just wish they were that cool, basically. Now, in my personal headcanon, I do include the Witcher games, though no other Witcher medium after that. So if we follow Avallac'h's grand journey onwards, we find him being a bit of an idiot about evading the Wild Hunt, and also somehow Eredin suddenly has cursing powers, ? But whatever, I guess. We also see him lie through Oniromancy, though. Now, again, I already brought this up in the Elf series, but the scene where Avallac'h shows the Elder King's death to the rest of the room is fake. Yeah, it's fake. It's just full-on fake. The Elder King was actually still awake after drinking what was most likely an overdose of Viagra, I kid you not, when Ciri found him. He then died in her arms, talking about how very Shiadal she was. The scene in the games has him sitting on a throne as a cup falls from his hand and Eredin going, "Long live the king." I mean, do you really need me to tell you that that is complete nonsense? I don't think I do. Eredin's guilt is actually quite up in the air in this whole ordeal. When Ciri meets him outside, where they have a bit of a boat battle, Eredin seems genuinely shocked to hear that the king is dead. But here we see him gleefully smirking over the king's death. If we think about this logically, then here's what really happened. Avallac'h spirited Ciri away to the Isle of Mist, where she was put under a spell, giving Avallac'h a bit of time to alter her memory of the whole ordeal, so he could fake the Oniromancy vision, while simultaneously throwing Eredin under the bus. What did Eredin say again? Avallac'h is a knowing one. Knowing ones have their own code of honor, in which every second sentence there's mention of the end justifying the means. He's basically saying that Avallac'h is 90% full of shit. So, those are some bad points to make about Avallac'h, but does he have any good ones? Well, he does most certainly ensure Ciri's survival for the majority of The Witcher 3, and before that even. He also aids Team Hero in finding a way to defeat the Wild Hunt, and gives up his supposedly adopted son/pupil for the cause, knowing that Ciri will kill Caranthir easily enough. Then finally, he opens the Ardgaith so Ciri can hop on in and put an end to the White Frost. And that's all very noble. The trouble is, We can't know why he did that. Out of the goodness of his heart, isn't really a thing. Perhaps to save the NL world from the impending White Frost as well, but let's be honest, if they truly wanted to, they could use navigators to teleport small groups of NL away from that world by now. It just wouldn't be the large-scale invasion Eredin had always imagined it would be. He most definitely has ulterior motives, because he's a knowing one, and that's their thing. He also disappears immediately after helping Ciri open the gate, which is especially odd. As it stands, though, he is still the reason Ciri was saved in the end, along with, well, most of existence, I suppose. Assuming you didn't have the very, very bad ending, of course. And he didn't have to do any of those things. Instead of making an enemy of his own people, he could have taken Ciri to his laboratory in Tirnalia over the Isle of Mists. He could have done his Vilgefortzy things and taken the blood he sought, then dumped her. But he didn't do that. Was he afraid he'd be too late to stop the White Frost through his new experiments? Possibly, but we don't know, of course. There is also one other option. Avallac'h did, in fact, accurately predict this entire timeline. His plan was always to have Ciri save the world from the White Frost. He predicted that Geralt would lose Ciri again immediately after finding her, and this did come true. She left for Camelot, but an evil Avallac'h could have interpreted that as, and then we take her and have elder blood babies. An Avallac'h that saw the true future, however, would know the future after that fact. Granted, this theory would require the games to work at all. If we take the books and the books only, then, well, Avallac'h just messed up or doesn't care as much as he pretends to because he already knew Ciri was leaving. But then again, if we only take the books, well, he's definitely a bad guy. So, is he a good guy or a bad guy? Well, I'm honestly not too sure he's either or at all. He could go either way, depending on what his motivations are. In Dutch, we say, je kunt er geen pijl op trekken, which translates to something like, you can't draw an arrow on it. We can't ever be sure. So I suppose, chaotic neutral? He's certainly no Iorveth. But let me know what you think, and why. Maybe his silver fox visage swayed at least some of you.